You know, it's kind of odd what occurs as you start to truly awaken. And when I say awaken, I'm not talking about just cracking open your eyelids first thing in the morning or sipping a comforting mug of joe. No, I mean the instant when you start piercing through the illusion, when the shroud of everyday awareness begins to lift, offering you a peek at the real deal unfolding around us. It's downright amazing, honestly. But here's the part no one warns you about. After that peak, after savoring that liberation, some experiences just aren't meant for spilling out. Not due to some esoteric code of silence, but because trying to pass them on is like funneling the sea into a tiny mug. It simply won't fit. Worse yet, pushing it can stir up more bewilderment than enlightenment. So, allow me to outline 5 elements that, if you're spiritually alert, you ought to keep to yourself. This isn't about ego or belonging to an elite group. It's because these aren't like everyday facts you can swap around. They're akin to a flower's aroma. You could paint pictures with words all day, but without inhaling it personally, no one truly grasps it. The initial item you shouldn't divulge is your raw encounter with the awakening moment. Right after it hits, there's this overwhelming impulse to broadcast it far and wide. You feel like shaking folks and shouting, "Hey, check this out. I've spotted it. It's right in front of us all along." Turns out, we've been searching in the completely wrong spot forever. Yet, when you act on that urge, what unfolds? The listener gazes at you with a blend of puzzlement and worry. They offer a courteous nod, perhaps murmur how great that sounds for you. Deep down, though, they're wondering if you've lost your marbles a tad. Why does this play out? Awakening isn't some notion or theory you can hand off mind to mind like a simple baking formula. It's an embodied truth. Think of the gap between scanning a book on swimming versus plunging into the pool yourself. If you attempt to convey the sensation of the liquid to someone who's never felt dampness, what registers with them? Merely noises, empty phrases. The true essence of the water enveloping you, flowing against your skin, that defies any verbal net. I recall a fellow once who underwent what you'd term a deep mystical shift. Strolling through the yard at dusk, abruptly, the whole scene turned see-through. He realized he wasn't an isolated entity meandering amid plants. Instead, the act of tending the garden was all there was. No separate stroller, no distinct plot of land, just the seamless flow of nurturing growth. Overjoyed, he dashed inside to share with his spouse. Her response? "Sounds lovely, honey. Oh, and mind emptying the trash." See, she couldn't absorb his revelation since she lacked that personal immersion. It's comparable to depicting the hue crimson for a person blind from birth. You might discuss light frequencies or the emotions it evokes, but you can't transmit the pure vividness of scarlet. And spiritual insight is infinitely more nuanced than even color perception. Thus, if you keep pressing to convey this revelation, you end up coming across as boastful. Quote, "Suddenly, a rift forms. You position yourself as the enlightened soul here, and them as the oblivious one there. In that very act, you've undermined the core truth you aimed to impart. That separations don't exist. No us versus them. The truly aware individual masters the art of silence on their shift, not from pretended humility, but from grasping that words about it resemble a digit aimed at the lunar orb. The digit guides if someone's inclined to follow its direction, but if they fixate on the digit alone, the actual moon slips away unnoticed. And that's typical. Folks hearing about your shift get hooked on the pointer. They probe for your steps to enlightenment, craving the ritual, the approach, the hidden routine. Yet the shift arrived not from your efforts, but from ceasing the striving and beholding what was ever present. The next element to withhold is the precise routines or techniques that suited you. This may seem at odds. After all, if it clicked for you, wouldn't passing it along aid others? Well, catch is, it succeeded because it matched your unique phase, your disposition, your brand of inner tangle. Picture a throbbing head you ease with a specific remedy, and the pain vanishes. Does that imply every headache sufferer needs that exact cure? Hardly. One's ache stems from stress, another's from fatigue, yet another's from thirst. The identical remedy might fizzle out for them. Not every technique suits everyone. In fact, it could even damage certain folks. Spiritual disciplines work the same way. Something that grants one individual profound insight might ensnare another in mere mechanics. For me, simply settling down to observe my breathing could pierce the veil of the isolated ego in an instant. Yet, if I insist that you do the same, you could waste years perched there, gazing at your breath, and wind up stuck, since your inner tangle differs from mine. There was this disciple who approached his guru and complained. Quote, the guru chuckled and replied, quote, 4. The student was stunned. Quote, 5. Indeed, the guru agreed. Quote, understand, the instant you hand someone a technique, they convert it into an objective. They assume that flawless execution of this routine will deliver enlightenment. Suddenly, they're more distant from true realization than at the outset because they've conjured a distant tomorrow when they envision wholeness arriving. But enlightenment isn't awaiting in the future. It's solely in this moment. It's recognizing what's right here, not fabricating novelty. The third element you should never reveal involves your perceptions of others. Upon awakening, you start perceiving people with striking clarity. You penetrate their facades, their maneuvers. You discern when fear drives them, when they're shielding a persona, when they're entangled in their personal narrative. A strong urge arises to assist by highlighting these truths. However, this usually proves unwise. Why? Individuals aren't prepared to confront their own reflections until the right moment, and when that arrives, they'll uncover it independently. They don't require your announcement. Actually, voicing it prematurely often sparks defiance and bitterness. Consider a butterfly laboring to escape its chrysalis. You might think, I'll intervene by slicing the cocoon to liberate it. But such action dooms the creature. The reason? That very exertion builds the strength in its wings. Lacking it, flight becomes impossible. Similarly, people must grapple with their inner muddles at their own pace. Your well-intentioned observation, if timed poorly, could genuinely wound them. I recall a session with a buddy who ranted endlessly about the injustice he'd faced on the job. He'd been overlooked for advancement, certain it stemmed from his superior's grudge. In reality, I perceived the core issue distinctly. My pal carried an air of superiority, a habit of brushing off colleagues' suggestions that rendered him tough to collaborate with. That was the true barrier to his rise. Did I voice this? Absolutely not, since he sought affirmation for his tale of victimhood, not honest self-examination. Had I remarked, truth is, you come across as haughty and offhand, the fallout would have been defensiveness. He might have severed our bond, and the deeper truth would remain hidden, as he wasn't primed to face it. Rather, I lent an ear, offered compassionate murmurs, and then, months on, unprompted, he declared, quote, 9. The realization bloomed within him organically, precisely when the soil was fertile. The enlightened soul comes to rely on this innate unfolding. They avoid dashing about to illuminate the masses. They grasp that awareness emerges on its schedule, akin to a bloom unfurling at dawn. You can't pry the petals apart. You merely cultivate suitable surroundings and then withdraw. The fourth item to withhold is your encounter with the void, the emptiness, the inherent instability of being. This ranks as potentially the riskiest disclosure, capable of profoundly unsettling the unready. When genuine awakening dawns, you realize no solidity exists anywhere. All that seemed enduring and tangible reveals itself as a fluid motion, an ongoing rhythm, an unfolding dynamic. Your core identity, which appears so steadfast and unbroken, resembles a stream more than a fixed entity. You might label it a stream, but grasping at it yields only liquid slipping away. The stream isn't an object, it's an occurrence. Such understanding proves utterly freeing. It signifies you're unbound from the role you imagine yourself playing. It reveals your troubles, your worries, your meticulously built self-concepts as transient vapors drifting across the heavens. Yet, to one who hasn't glimpsed this, it rings with horror. It seems you're claiming insignificance for all things, that existence. It's pointless, they argue. We're nothing but fleeting clusters of particles colliding aimlessly without any deeper meaning. I once foolishly attempted to convey this idea to a co-worker during a meal. He was chatting about his ambitions ahead, the goals he aimed to reach, the version of himself he hoped to develop. In a moment of poor judgment, I remarked that there's truly no you capable of accomplishing those things. What you label as yourself is merely a recurring pattern, a mental routine. It doesn't exist in the solid, independent form you assume it does. His reaction was pure shock, like I'd just confessed to plotting a heist. "What on earth do you mean?" he shot back. "I'm absolutely real, right here in this chair. I think, I feel, I remember. How dare you claim otherwise?" He grew visibly agitated, convinced I was erasing his very being and rendering his existence trivial. In reality, I meant he's authentic, just not as a stand-alone entity confined within flesh and bone. He's the entire cosmos, manifesting through a unique configuration known as himself. Yet he couldn't grasp that perspective. It challenged his core notion of who he was. Lose that firm self-image, and he feared total disintegration. That's precisely why profound sages across the ages have been selective about revealing their most profound wisdom. They recognized these insights function like remedies. Delivered properly in the ideal moment, they restore. Mishandled or mistimed, they devastate. The reality of voidness, of that fundamental emptiness, of life's inherent instability, this revelation demands a slow, tender introduction. Otherwise, it risks demolishing a person's reality before they're ready to reconstruct it. And the final prohibition: never disclose your realization of absolute liberation and the reason traditional norms and ethics no longer constrain you. Upon enlightenment, it becomes clear that every guideline, every obligation or prohibition, every ethical framework and societal norm amounts to mere pacts, collective games we've opted into. You grasp that you're at liberty to join in or step away at will. But voicing this aloud, declaring you're transcended beyond right and wrong, unbound by standard ethics, since you perceive them as inventions, folks will view you as a threat. They'll worry you're poised to commit crimes or injure others, untethered from ethical boundaries. The key oversight is that genuine liberty isn't licensed to cause damage. In full awakening, you recognize that hurting anyone else equates to self-inflicted wounds, given the illusion of division. The individual you injure is simply another facet of the unified awareness you embody. Thus, compassion arises effortlessly, organically, not enforced by doctrine, but emerging from the insight of interconnectedness. An liberated soul honors the essence of justice without clinging to its rigid forms. They behave ethically, driven neither by dread of consequences nor desire for acclaim. but because clear vision naturally yields ethical conduct. Their gentleness stems not from seeing virtue as a duty, but from viewing cruelty as absurd as striking your own cheek. Good luck conveying this to those who attribute ethics to outside forces, divine decree, communal pressure, or some universal playbook. They can't fathom coexisting moral autonomy with upright actions. To them, it's an oxymoron. So they conclude you're either fabricating your enlightenment or harboring hidden depravity, biding your time. The enlightened individual adheres to societal expectations, fully aware of their artificiality. They engage in the role because opting out would stir pointless discord and bewilderment. They settle their debts, follow road rules, show courtesy to others, not out of compulsion, but because harmony flows more smoothly that way. Picture a seasoned performer who understands the stage is illusory, yet pours full commitment into every scene. There you go, 5 revelations to withhold if you've attained spiritual clarity. Your personal awakening encounter, your private techniques and approaches, your perceptions into others' natures, your grasp of void and instability, and your emancipation from everyday ethics. Does this silence all spiritual discourse? Hardly. Distinguish between gesturing toward a truth and professing to possess it outright, between proposing an option and dictating a verdict. The enlightened share words sparingly with subtlety. They hint instead of declare. They beckon rather than dictate. They recall that language merely indicates the moon, like a pointing digit, and mustn't be mistaken for the luminous orb. Above all, they've discovered the profoundest lesson lies beyond speech. It resides in their essence, in how they navigate existence, in their joy, their quietude, their unadorned presence. People may not grasp your words on enlightenment, yet they sense it when near someone truly enlightened. It comes across as a deep calm, an expansive openness, a feeling that this individual is truly settled in the cosmos, unlike so many others. Keep your enlightenment to yourself, then. Embody it instead of broadcasting it. Have faith that those prepared to awaken will do so on their own, not due to any prodding from you, but as awareness itself stirs alive within every one of us, each at their unique moment, each through their personal path. You aren't the one sparking the awakening. You're merely one more manifestation of this perpetual unfolding that's already underway. And should someone approach you with real interest and openness, feel free to share. But share like one seeker guiding another to nourishment, not like a sage lecturing from the summit on the road up. For here's the profound truth. There's no destination to reach. We're right there already. We've been there forever. We're simply engaging in this grand illusion of acting as if we're not.